Sovereign AI Webinar Workshop 2.2 with SCX.ai and obviously partnered with Eccoi. So last week we had session 2.1 and this week session 2.2. We're going to go through largely the same topics as last time. There was a bit of feedback about the speed of the last webinar, so we will try and take it a bit slower this time. And Rob's got a bit more material and documentation to help us work through it. So I'll be the host, but Rob will largely be driving this. He's our chief engineer at SCX.ai, and he's involved not only in creating the portal that many of you may be familiar with if you've already set up your SCX.ai account. And if you haven't, actually, while I'm talking, I'll just put this up on the screen. We, with SCX.ai partnering with Eccoi, have provided a special offer to Eccoi members, which is 5 million free tokens per day on your SCX.ai Eccoi member account. If you haven't already signed up for one of those, you can go there right now and do that. And you'll be able to play along as the webinar goes. That's scx.ai/Eccoi. And you can sign up for an account there. While Rob's working, if anyone does sign up for an account, I can go through and make sure you've got them all set up. In terms of the schedule today, we're looking at firstly how to set the account up. Then we'll be looking at VSCode Cline, which is a pretty common use case for a lot of people. Then our preference in terms of IDEs, Opencode. Internally and also to customers, we recommend using that. Rob will show you how to install that, how to use it. He'll do an example of building a little app from scratch, just a simple polling app, but just to show you how that deployment looks. And then also he'll cover off a hybrid model deployment, which is using both either something like Anthropic for the planning phase and then using a smaller open source model or a faster open source and cheaper open source model like Minimax 2.7 to do the build phase. That we've found with a lot of our customers has reduced a huge amount of development cost. In terms of housekeeping, Sam would be disappointed if I didn't mention this. Obviously, everyone's on mute. Videos are off as well. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. I can either point them out to Rob or he can answer them directly as well. And then if there's any bigger ones, we can come back to them at the end. So I guess without sort of further ado, I'll pass it over to Rob and he can get us underway.
All right. How's it going, everyone? I guess the first thing we should start with is signing up with SCX. So to do that, you just need to head over using that link from the Eccoi page and sign up using that link. That link will give you those free tokens to have a good test of the system and hopefully work through everything that I show in this demo today. So I guess we should start with VS Code. So depending on how people like to work, we usually recommend two setups: VS Code using the extension Cline or Opencode. So all right, great. So yeah, VS Code. I'm sure most people are familiar with VS Code. So typical IDE. To enable the essentially agentic workflows that we recommend or that we are supporting through SCX, you're going to need to install Cline. So Cline is just a free extension that you can download. And to do that, you can just go here. Oops. Open up the extensions tab over here on the left-hand side, and then search for Cline. It's here, and you just click on this one and install it. Currently, I've already got it installed, but here you would just have to click install. And once you've done that, once that's installed, you're going to need to set up a Cline account. And that'll take you through its own workflow. But once that's done, you have this new icon over here on your left-hand menu called Cline. And this is your agent interface. And so this is what we need to hook up to the SCX.ai endpoint. And to do that, you just have to click on this top right-hand settings icon. And then under API configuration, we're going to select OpenAI compatible endpoint. for the base URL, we will paste in the api.scx.ai/v1, and then we're going to paste in our API key. And I'll show you how to create an API key in just a sec. And also the model tag that we're going to use in this case, Coda, which is our fine-tuned implementation of Minimax M27. And that's our special coding model that we use on a day-to-day basis. And once those things are set, you're pretty much good to go. So I'll just quickly jump off this screen share and show you how to create an API key. So this is the SCX dashboard. So once you sign in using your Eccoi link, you'll be presented with this dashboard, and you'll be given your 5 million tokens, I think, per day to use. So you don't need to add a credit card or anything. You just get those free credits, no worries. So the main thing here that we're going to need is to jump over here to API keys, and under this menu, create our new API key. And so when creating an API key, you get a few options. You can create it to have log everything, so that'll log all your inputs and outputs of the models that you use. You can have input only logging, output only logging, and then absolutely no logging whatsoever for no retention of data. In this case, we create that, set that. So once we've done that, this is our API key. You only get it shown once, so you need to save it wherever you're going to put it. It will not be shown again. You will need to regenerate a new token if you lose it or it gets compromised. And so that's it. That's the API key we've created. And then we can go in and paste that into our OpenAI compatible endpoints. So anywhere, so I don't want to restrict it just to Cline. So if you have any other integration that has OpenAI compatibility, you can just substitute in our base URL. So in this case, the api.scx.ai/v1, and then you can paste in our API key and select one of our compatible models, and it should all just work out of the box. And so yeah, that's the basic setup of Cline. So let me just go back to showing you how that works.
Rob, there's just been a little comment about the screen resolution. So if you do want to zoom in a little bit on the screen, if you can, might help some people.
Yeah, let me see what I can do. That a bit better. Probably a bit oversized now, but that's probably a bit better.
That's great.
Yep, cool. Yeah, so yeah, OpenAI. So you get your selection of API providers here. So you get it's quite a few things. We'll hopefully get our SCX built in here soon, so you can just paste in an API key. But other than that, OpenAI compatible. Select that one, put in the base URL, and then paste in that API key we just created in the dashboard. The model tags here can be any of our models from our catalog. But again, Coda is our premier coding model, and Minimax M27 is a very, very good Claude 4.7 comparable model that we have running here in Australia. So once that's set up, the other thing you'll need to set is model configuration. So this just tells the environment essentially what the token budget is for this model. So every model has its own maximum amount of context window. And so the way we manage that is we just set those environment variables here. As the conversation with the agent approaches the maximum context window for that model, what will happen is a compaction. So what that means is it'll go back, it will take some time and summarize everything that's happened beforehand, and then essentially compress that into a very small summarized version that then you can continue on your conversation with. So yeah, that's it. So the context window for our Coda model is 192,000, and the max output is 8,000 tokens. And that's it. Click done, and then we can from here do our planning. And so as you can see, it's using the SCX Coda model to run through. It's reading existing files that are already in the file system. But again, everything is sovereign here, so nothing is going overseas. Everything is staying within Australia, in fact, within Sydney here. And it should all plan out. And so we've got our plan here. It's actually executed very quickly. So the token speeds you can expect from SCX.ai's models are about, for Minimax and Decoder, is about up from anywhere between 200 tokens per second up to 400 tokens per second. So it's about anywhere between 5 and 10 times faster than the frontier model providers, with only a little bit less intelligence. And I'll show you how that can be worked in. It's like a hybrid method further along in the webinar. So yeah, we've got our plan here, and then we can just ask it to build it. But I'm just going to leave it here at the planning stage for now, and we'll go to building with Opencode next, because it's roughly the same sort of interface and process.
Rob,
so yeah,
I'll just
that's it.
quickly interrupt. I've just got a question. Someone's got a little bit of an issue with
Sure.
setting it up,
Yep.
setting the API key up. Shadi, if you are comfortable with putting your email into the chat, I can look for your account, because I can't actually find it on our platform. So if you are comfortable with that, that's great. Otherwise, you can email me at sam.elliott@scx.ai, and I can help you there. But back to you, Rob.
Yeah, depending on when you signed up, Shadi, it tends to last only for a month, but I'll have a look for you right now.
I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it, Rob. You
right.
keep going.
No worries. I'll keep going. So that's it. Is everyone okay with the Cline and VS Code setup for now? Stop sharing, and we'll go on to setting up with Opencode. Yeah, happy to pause here if people want to slow down. That's all good. Feel free to fire away any questions you have as well. I'll answer them now.
While we're paused, then, rather than answering the chat, Shadi, it looks like you haven't created an account, so you'll have to create an account before you'll be able to set that, because you'll need to get an API key to be able to set it up correctly.
Yeah, the API key provides the access, and yeah, gives you the tokens.
So, Rob, as well, someone asked in the chat if it's okay to use Cursor. Obviously, the answer is yes, but maybe you want to talk a little bit more about that in terms of other applications they can use.
So again, Cursor does provide access to third-party model providers through OpenAI compatibility. The only issue is it doesn't let you configure the models correctly. They're sort of in a place where they don't want anyone using models that they don't make money off, which is fine. We are actually in talks with Cursor to supply to them in Australia. So we will be probably providing an SCX first-party integration with Cursor soon. But I wouldn't recommend it just because at this point in time without the proper model configurations.
That's actually a great question from Arash. Why would my token usage and yours you just did using the same prompt be different? A great question that gets to the heart of AI, in fact. Do you want to answer that one, Rob?
So for every input, there is a bit of like randomness. So the model has some sort of random selection part of it that lets it be a bit creative and not generate the same thing for every input. So even though we've asked the same question, we might end up getting slightly different answers. Perhaps they're closely related, perhaps they're not as the same sort of thing. The agent can end up using different thought patterns and end up using totally different amounts of tokens. If you're looking to minimize your token consumption, the idea is to be as concise and direct as possible, so don't leave any ambiguity. But other than that, it's going to be, you'll get different token consumption for every
it's the
sort of
joys of Gen AI. Every time you put in a prompt, regardless of where you are, it's creating a new response. So that's why they vary. There's also a question here from Madhul about he's got a Cline extension but can't see how to configure it for Cursor. I think probably at this stage we might just move on. We're going to do an Opencode deployment as well, so maybe you could play along with that. Rob sort of already addressed the Cursor issues. I think, yeah, if you want to carry on now, then that would be great, Rob.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so post up the tutorial. Yeah, we've uploaded a new tutorial on how to use Opencode with SCX. So I'm just going to post that link in the chat.
Yeah, I've
That's
already put the link in the chat.
great. All right, sorry, missed that. But yeah, so it's up in the chat. And so this is what you'll roughly need to do to get set up. This is going to differ depending on whether you're on Windows or Linux or Mac, and how you actually want to use the Opencode interface. Opencode provides essentially a desktop app interface as well as what's known as a code line interface, a CLI. And depending on what sort of interface you want to use or your proficiency, will determine sort of which interface you use. I'll try and show you how to set up both of them, and we can show you how to build things or vibe code things with SCX. So without further ado, I'll share that. We can get here and get Opencode. So to download Opencode, you just jump over to Opencode.ai, and then you can head to download over here and follow these instructions for whichever environment you want to use. So terminal, desktop. There is actually a VS Code extension as well. I won't be covering that today because it's relatively new. And that's it. Yeah, so I'm going to focus on the terminal installation here. And you can do it on Windows. You can do it on Linux and Mac. So once you have installed Opencode, all right, well, you have to bear with me until I open Opencode. So to open Opencode, so I'm going to demo two different variants of Opencode today. So we have our fully sovereign solution. So as you'll see in that guide, there's two configuration files I've put in there. So we have fully sovereign, which is using SCX.ai to do the full workflow, where none of your data and code goes overseas. It stays in Australia, no logging, no training, nothing like that. And then we have a hybrid approach, which is an attempt at using a frontier model in conjunction with SCX to primarily reduce token consumption. Obviously, because you've got the frontier model, your data won't be sovereign. It will be going overseas. But if you're looking to A, speed up the way you work, and B, reduce the token spend, it's a good way to go about it. So I'll fire up the sovereign demo to begin with.
And I'll just chime in here as well. I imagine that quite a few people on this webinar have been on previous ones. But in terms of the sovereignty, sorry, I just see a question coming through from Andrew. Will the use of DeepSeek models send data offshore? That was exactly where I was going with this. So basically, our cluster is in Sydney in Equinix SY5. We don't do any data offshoring. All data remains in Australia. We also don't do any data training or any training on any customer data, or if you know, on free package as well. We don't train on any of that data. We don't do any input and output logging by default as well. So any inputs and outputs you put in aren't logged anyway. So in terms of sovereignty, that's about as good as you can get at the moment in Australia. And we've also got ambitions as well to get involved with some more sort of local Australian companies in terms of hosting as well, in terms of data centers. So that's the sovereignty angle. And Rob, I'll go back to you to carry on.
Yeah, so I'll just emphasize. So definitively, all the models on SCX.ai are all processed and handled entirely in that cluster currently that's in Sydney. Nothing goes external. The models run isolated here. And just because the model name is DeepSeek does not mean it has any sort of connection to China or anything like that. Now Terence is asking if I can show how to integrate the vector databases. I can. That might be a separate webinar. That's a completely separate sort of thing. Perhaps another topic. Yeah. But yeah,
it's also something that potentially, if you want to contact Rob after this, he'd be happy to sort of talk you through it in terms of an email. But yeah, it might be a future webinar topic as well. Some of the more advanced features of both of our platform and advanced use cases of AI. We've been talking with Sam Bartoni about the potential for doing some sort of agentic webinar as well. So that's something to look forward to, but probably tonight we won't have time to cover off vector databases. So thanks, Rob.
Yeah, okay. So I've got to quickly demo Opencode. So I've got Opencode already set up and installed. So those two config files you'll find in the tutorial, I've set up in two directories. So look in what's in here. So we've got an opencode.json. So that's the exact file from the tutorial. And in here, we're going to need to set up our API key again. So pretty much a common thing here is you're going to need to set up an API key for any of these integrations. And so I'm just going to quickly paste one in here. So once that's in, that's pretty much it. So there's no more configuration for the sovereign deployment. You can go through here and read it if you like, but what this is pretty much defining the models that we have available to use. And that's pretty much it. You don't really need to look at it too much more than that. Save that. And then so now that we've saved our opencode.json with our API key in it, we can open up Opencode in this directory and it will load those models for us. So if we Opencode this directory, might take a second because I haven't opened it since a few days. Might be an update. Okay. Great. So hopefully everyone can see that it's nice and clear. So to select, so even though we've put those models in, we will need to select our SCX model. So to do that, you type /models, and this will bring up a menu of models, and then you can quickly to find SCX's models. So in here, there's a lot of providers from all around the world. We will hopefully get listed in here soon, but you just need to search for SCX, and then our models will pop up here, and we can select any of our ones. Obviously, we'll select Coda. And so to quickly demo what it's like to build an app using our coding model, I'll quickly switch to plan mode and then so as this goes through, again, let's get a plan out how to do that. Ask us questions. You can see how fast that is. So again, we're operating at about 400 tokens per second. So if we scroll up here, we can. So that's hard to see if it's resolution. Let's see what
in the old spec that'd be 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, so that's pretty quick. So that's our plan. So again, I have to preface this. So generally, when working with these agentic coding tools, you want to use a plan step to essentially define the following steps that the agents get to perform to write the application code. So what the planning step does is essentially write a to-do list, and then we'll switch to what's called the build phase, where another agent will go through and execute each of those steps to build out the application. And so now that we've got our plan done, you can see it's saying ready to implement. Scanning here, ready to implement. Switch to build phase. So just by pressing tab, you can switch between plan and build. And we're just going to tell it to build it. Again. It's going to remove that previous app that we had from the last week's demo, and we're going to go through and build a new app. And as you can see, it's already done. And so we can open that up, and I'll show you what that app looks like. Great. All right, so here's our polling app that we've just built. Great poll, great. You can vote, do all these things. Done. So that's the quick high-level introduction to using these tools. Obviously, that's a very simple example. And again, you can, depending on your skill level, go up from here, build pretty much anything.
Marhul's just asked if we're going to cover the SCX guardrails integration piece in the build process today. Again, probably similar to vector databases. I don't think we'll have time to cover that off today. But it's sounding to me a lot like some of these more advanced features we'll look to cover in another webinar. I'll have to talk to Sam Bartoni after this one about when that might be scheduled. But I think we'll look to do that in another webinar, some of the more advanced layer. Yeah.
Rush has asked, how do you switch between a different model for the build? Well, I'm just about to show you that, so I'll demo that right now for you. Okay, we'll switch. I'll show you how it works using a frontier model. Again, this can be done in any way you want it. So you could switch between using, say, Gemma 4 for the planning, or any model combination of what I'm about to show you. So let me just stop sharing that. Sharing this. All right, so similar to that previous setup, we've got our opencode.json in this directory, which is going to define our config. Again, in that tutorial, you'll see that you can set up a global opencode.json, and that will show you how to set up the config for every time you open Opencode. All right, so let's quickly get into this. So zooming in.
Terence, I've got your question here, and I will ask that to Rob, but we'll just go through this and then we'll get to that question in a sec.
Cool. Yeah, so similar to before, the only new thing here is that we now have another provider for Anthropic. And so, well, so two things. We have this agent block up the top here, which defines how you specify those two models for switching between planning and building. So this is for you, Rush. You can set your build primary model to SCX Minimax or Coda, and then the plan model. So these are the two built-in agents for Opencode. They come out of the box by default. You can add in and custom agents and that sort of thing when you get more into this. So yeah, again, we're keeping it simple and getting started sort of level here, but plan. So for planning, we're going to use Anthropic Opus 4.7, and then you'll just need to the right of the screen. Not too sure that. Anyways, so yeah, again, you'll need to paste in your API key. So an Anthropic API key. Obviously, I'm not going to paste that in while I'm demoing, and then a SCX API key again, which I will paste in now. Okay.
Just to answer your question, Madhul, Rob's just getting his Anthropic API key to show how the hybrid build model works, and he doesn't want to show it to everyone for obvious reasons. So he's just doing that off screen.
All right. Okay. So now that we've put in our two API keys, yeah. Okay, so now we put our two API keys in. We've got our config file set up in this specific directory. We're going to open Opencode in here, and then let's get a pop open. And we've got our two models. So similar to before, you actually in this instance, since we've set those two agents up with models already, you won't need to go in and set the models. They'll already be there. So Minimax M27 you can see is already set. And if we press tab to switch to the plan phase, we've got Anthropic 4.7 on extra high thinking. And so to demo what that looks like, we can just switch, or we can do that same sort of app.
Dr. Zayed, I'll ask you a question while this is planning out. Yeah, so Rob, there's been a question submitted. When you serve different models behind the OpenAI compatible API, who controls the context window and truncation? Is it fixed per model, or can we configure the input-output limits ourselves on the platform? And does anything get truncated silently, or do we get a signal when it happens?
Yeah, right. So truncation is part of the sort of a user implementation detail. So what I mean by that is it's going to depend on what harness you're using. So in this case, so truncation doesn't necessarily happen. You only have 196,000 tokens in context window. So when you get close to that, nothing automatic happens on the API endpoint. So if you hit 196,000 input tokens, your request will just get blocked because the model won't be able to process it. So Usually how it works is in the harness you're using, in this case, Opencode, you specify that our model only has a context window of 196,000 tokens. And then once Opencode reaches somewhere close to that limit, it will perform what's called a compaction. So it'll go back through your chat history, and it will summarize whatever changes have been made into a much smaller context, and then you can continue your chat going forward from that small compressed summarization.
And then I've just got another question as well, Rob. For Anthropic, can we use the subscription OAuth essentially, or are we burning API credits?
Very good question. So you can. Anthropic doesn't like it when you do, but you can. There is a third party. So Opencode used to provide that functionality out of the box. They got sued by Anthropic and had to remove it from their code base, but there is a third party plugin you can install to use your Claude Code Max subscription with Opencode. So yes, you can. There's just a few steps to it. So yeah, okay, I'll continue on with my demo here. So again, we're going to get through those questions of what the app's going to look like. So a voting poll app, open storage, hard-coded in JSON. Cool. So being an Anthropic model, it likes to burn tokens and go slow. So watch how much it's going to burn through here, just getting to a simple polling app. But again, it does have a certain taste that these open source models don't have, which you'll be able to see when the finished app is built. However, you don't necessarily need to use such a high-powered model to do the grunt work of writing the code and actually building out the features. And so
just a question about whether this is for a website the AI is building. No, what this is doing is it's just building a small polling app. So you'll see the output. It'll be identical, or it won't be identical. It'll be very similar to the one we built in the last example. But because we've used Claude for the planning, it'll be slightly different in sort of design and layout. Another question in the chat there for you, Rob, if you want to answer that one. Is this using the VISX?
VISX. Sorry, I don't know what VISX is. I'll have a look after this in a sec.
It's an open source data visualization library. So I've got another question here. I know we can use Claude Code as a harness with OpenAI compatible APIs. So could we use SCX models with Claude Code instead of Opencode?
You can. It does actually work, and with Minimax, it's quite good. I can provide another demo. I'll be putting up some more guides and integration guides on the SCX documentation. So yes, absolutely works, because our API endpoint is not only OpenAI compliant, it's also Anthropic compliant. So you can sub this in with Anthropic endpoints. All right, so I think we're done here. Let's switch to the build phase. So you can see we've switched to the build phase, and now the model tag is saying Minimax M27 SCX.ai, and we should get told to build it. So just keeps asking too many questions.
Oh, sorry. The original question was actually supposed to be, is this using the VSIX?
VSIX?
Visual Studio. It's a Visual Studio package file, I think, package format. But yeah, I don't think this wouldn't be using Visual Studio because it's different.
No. Opencode's its own thing. So again, okay, we've done there, we've built. So you can see it went through pretty quick. So we went through that entire plan. So we had that huge plan up here to how to build the app, and then Minimax went through, burned through, and ripped through building that up in about 2 seconds. And so we can check what that looks like now. So we can show you what the sort of hybrid approach produces. So you can see it's got more visual styling, and you can you've got more options here and that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's the sort of benefit of using it. You get those extra flavors of the frontier model, the design choices and that sort of thing. And then you also get the token reduction and speed of SCX.ai to actually do the execution. And so when you scale this out to an actual like workload and when you're actually building things, you can think of it as you get to iterate about 4 times faster than you would just using Anthropic models without actually losing any, I guess, intelligence in the build step. So yeah, that's the demo. And is there anything else I need to cover? Quickly check.
I think that's good for now. We could probably just go to answering some questions if there are any more questions. If you like, I can take over the screen share for you. All right. So, yeah, are there any questions? That's the.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the V6 extension, yeah. So no, that Opencode is not a Visual Studio Code plugin. It does actually. It does provide a plugin, so you can install it in VS Code now. But the way I was just demoing it there was on the command line. So yeah.
Did you
I can actually
get a? So Terence just asked, does the model have an internal vector database?
No, it sort of does, but no. Embeddings are essentially the way that models store their intelligence, or part of the way they store their intelligence, but they don't have a database that they do a lookup in natively. Although I think the DeepSeek V4 does provide something like that, but you can't essentially put your data into it, if that makes sense. It's just part of the training process.
Dr. Zayad's asked a question about Equinix SO5 US owned, about the Cloud Act. The Cloud Act's a data law. So and you're wondering how that keeps, how that refers to data is stored in Equinix facility. So because we are Australian sovereign owned company, and we're the data processor, it's not susceptible to the Cloud Act. If you had someone like Anthropic or Microsoft or any of their providers, the data that's processed through their tools, because they're American-owned entities, that data can be seized through the Cloud Act. So it just operates slightly differently. There is another law, obviously the FISA one as well, which probably has a little bit more bearing on data centers and who your provider is. But we can get into that on another call. SCX also has vector stores. That would be the vector layer, wouldn't it? That's a question from Mudhall, Rob.
Yep, so we do provide vector stores, and that does provide that vector search capability. So we do automatically ingest your files if you want to, and we can provide a essentially semantic search point that a model can then talk to your documents if that's something you want to do. So yeah, we can demo how that works. You can also set that up in various different ways for various different applications. It's very versatile.
Sorry, Manhur, we haven't got an open mic. Just there's a lot of people in the chat. It could get quite chaotic. Terence has just asked, is the context window of 196K for each session? How does SCX secure this in the shared memory?
Yeah, right. So 196 per session. So for your individual instance. And in terms of securing it in shared memory, so we don't log anything throughout the entire chain. And it just comes, your request goes to the model, gets encoded, and that's it. There's no logging of your inputs. And yeah, in terms of shared memory, we run it in an isolated cluster that there's no other tenants in there.
It's probably worth talking briefly about the sort of working memory of the ASIC infrastructure that we run, in terms of why that can process multiple queries at the same time.
Yeah, sure. So we run Samba Nova RDUs, so we don't run GPUs. And what that means is that we can process So the RDU is a very inference-specific chip. It only does inference, and it does it very, very well and very, very efficiently. So we can essentially process requests in single racks. So when you send a request to, say, one of our models, it only gets processed in a single rack, and it doesn't get distributed amongst a bunch of racks, which it does for GPUs because of the way you need to manage memory for large models. How much is this? How much memory is in a single node? I think. Oh, let me get some numbers for you. So
a single node being a single rack unit, or so for example, our first node in Sydney that we launched in January, that's got 10 racks with 2 chips per server, and is it 8 servers per rack? So 16, and then 160 of those. Yeah. Might be one of those questions we can probably answer after this as well.
Each chip has 1.5 terabytes of memory of DDR3. A mix of DDR3, HBM, and SRAM. So it's a tiered architecture.
Yeah, that's a good point, Terence. So one of the I guess probably one of the most impressive things about the Samba Nova chip architecture is that for concurrent requests, it handles it way better than any other solution available. So you tend to find with GPUs it drops off after too many concurrent requests, and I'm pretty sure the SN40s run with over 220 concurrent requests at the same time. So it can hold its throughput with quite a lot of workload. And Mahul has very kindly put in a link to the actual Samba Nova page, so you can have a look there. There's plenty of material online about it as well, and we're more than happy to answer questions. Post this if you want to send any emails. What I will do though is I'll just move this on. So obviously next steps from here, we've got the Eccoi community. I imagine you're all members. If you're not, you can join. It's a great community, and Sam at the moment is building this sovereign AI community of practice. So I think being a part of that's a really, really good step to being involved in the conversation in Australia. You can obviously start using sovereign AI today with the account that you can get from the special Eccoi deal that we've got. I mentioned it in the chat, but that deal is 5 million free tokens per day for a month. We have pushed that out for people who made the account a while ago. That will push out to the next point, which is Sovereign AI Showcase. So on the 15th of July, it was originally scheduled for the 8th, but just there's been some requests that we could maybe push that out a bit. So that'll be on the 15th of July, which is a Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We'll bring a whole bunch of product to show as well. We've got some customers who are keen to come along to that. But if you build anything, and it doesn't have to be with our sovereign AI service. You could build it with something else, and you want to show it off or want to talk about it, then come along to that as well. Because of what's been discussed today, there's been a few more questions about vector databases and guardrails. We'll have a chat with Sam, and I think we could probably look to put on another, maybe more advanced webinar in the future. Yeah. And I think with that, if there's no... Oh, okay, sorry. So Nick Forshine said we should run our agents against it. Absolutely. Unfortunately, VCs don't give any money to companies that want to focus on sovereign AI. Preach. What partnership programs do you have? We do have partnership programs. I think you can make a partnership request through the site actually. So if you want to do that after this, by all means do. Alternatively, you can just send me an email, sam.elliott@scx.ai. Is that product showcase? Sorry, when is that? That is, I think you can see the screen at the moment. That's the 15th of July. So next month, Wednesday, about a month from now. Is it okay to ask, do you pay royalties to model providers? Good question. Currently, no. All the models that we serve are open source. Some of the model providers,
not technically all of them. Not technically all of them. So M27 is done through a licensing deal. It's not technically an open weights model. So that is acquired.
But we don't pay royalties though.
We don't pay royalties, no. It's a licensing.
We don't pay royalties to it. But sorry, Rob is completely correct that it's not technically an open weights model, you do need a license from them, which we do have because you have a reasonably good partnership with Minimax. At the moment, yeah, we don't pay royalties to any model providers. A lot of them are obviously seeking value for themselves, so I imagine that's going to be something that will come up down the line and may affect which models we work with as well. Can we BYO model? Great question. You can. Obviously, to BYO model, though, we need to reserve capacity on the racks for you. So that's more of a commercial arrangement. We also do help people fine-tune models on the racks. Lately, the ones we've worked with most are GPT OSS 120B, fine-tuning that for various purposes. But you can choose whatever model you want to fine-tune. And yes, you can do a BYO model. That would be much more of a commercial question. We'd need to discuss that. I think I've answered everything. Colo ? What you might need to expand on that. We are in a colo space in Equinix, but beyond that, I'm not sure what you're asking. We can showcase our totally wild AI swarm of agents running over SCX. Absolutely. I would very much look forward to that. Swarm of agents running over SCX. That would be fantastic, Nick. So please bring that along. That would be fantastic. And if you need some more compute for that, then absolutely we'd be interested in chatting about that. I think that's pretty much everything. Sam, did you want to say anything?
No, that's great, guys. Great session. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate everyone coming to this. It's a long journey. This is just the start, and hopefully we'll get to see you at the showcase.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if you have any questions, I'm always on LinkedIn or email, and Sam, you can reach out to Sam Elliott as well. Please feel free, and look forward to seeing you again.
Great. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all. See you again soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Bye.